Chapter 1, Time to Sleep. I believe this dream happened last week, on July 12, 2024. It had been a long time since I last remembered a dream, as I usually forget them or don't dream at all. That day, I was having a great time playing Zombie Attack, and my teammates and I actually reached Wave 103, so I ended up staying up late. Since I'm young, my parents don't want me staying up too late because it's bad for my health. Unfortunately, my dad woke up out of nowhere, which made me very nervous. I quickly turned off my PC and quietly went back to bed. Before sleeping, I opened my phone and tried to use YouTube to listen to music. This was my first time listening to music before sleeping. However, I exited because I expected too many ads. Then Spotify came to mind. Soul downloaded it and signed in. To my surprise, all my old music was stored there. I had songs from 2015 to 2023, so it was going to be a nostalgic experience. I sat on the bed, lay down, pulled up my blanket, it's winter here in New Zealand, and closed my eyes while listening to the music. The playlist was mostly NCS tracks like Alan Walker and the Fat Rat, along with some songs typically enjoyed by girls like Poker Face and Havana. As I listened, I felt a wave of nostalgia and actually started crying. It was as if my past self was communicating with me, leading to a deep reflection on my past, making my tears fall despite being a boy. The last time anyone saw me cry was probably around 7 years ago. I'm 17 now. My goodness, it was such a relief to cry. I rarely cry since I'm generally a nonchalant person, just kidding. Many roasters and bullies don't bother me because I'm confident. My family has never made me cry, and my friends. No, I haven't cried in the past 7 years. While I was listening to the music, I fell asleep, while smiling and with tears in my eyes. Chapter 2, The Dream. The dream began with me waking up in my bed as usual, thinking I was awake. It was Saturday, so I went about my routine. I decided to bother my sister in her room, but for some reason she wasn't there. Confused, I checked my parents' room, but they were also missing. I was shocked. I walked outside and noticed no cars or people passing by until I saw a beautiful girl with white hair and red eyes staring at me intently from my left side, about 10 feet away. I turned and waved at her, but she didn't respond. I said, "Hi," but she just kept staring and then smiled for some reason. I approached her and said, "Hi." She replied, "Hello." I asked, "Are your parents missing?" while looking into her eyes intently. She nodded like a child, as if I were talking to my little cousin. Then she asked, "Do I know you?" "No, I'm just your neighbor," I replied, confused. "Oh," she said, her smile fading as she looked annoyed. "Do you know what's happening?" I asked cautiously. She smiled again and said, "Do you know that I'm not real?" I was terrified. "Are you okay?" I asked with concern. She smiled again and said, "I was kidding." I felt relieved and asked her again, "What's really happening?" "There have been people going missing, taken by someone named Ramesses who uses a passenger train to capture our parents," she explained. I noticed she was probably around 17 years old too and quite beautiful. "A driver? Are you serious, mate?" I asked, incredulous. "My name is Mimosa," she said. "I can help you find your parents." "Okay, lol," I replied, making a weird facial expression. She held my hand, and suddenly we teleported to a labyrinth. Chapter 3, The Lobby. The labyrinth looked like a Roblox obby, all green, giving off a mega fun hobby vibe. "Where are we?" I asked. "I don't know," Mimosa replied. Irritated, I said, "What?" Suddenly, a guy approached us from behind. "Hello, ladies and gentlemen." Mimosa and I were shocked. We turned around to see a thin guy with blue eyes and blonde hair, who looked like he might be Australian. "Who are you?" we both asked at the same time. "I'm Luca, nice to meet you," he said. Then he added, "Did I sound manly enough?" and giggled. I wondered, is he not a boy? Does he have the heart of a woman? The G word, I said, "Sure." For some reason, Mimosa was staring at him with a blank expression. Luca, who looked to be about our age, seemed confused. "Hi, miss," he said. I kept a serious expression, but inside I was laughing. Mimosa asked, "Are your parents also missing?" "Yes," Luca replied. "How about you?" Mimosa said, "Yes, and also my friend." Luca responded, "Oh." I asked, "What are we doing in this place?" Luca replied, "We're here to find our parents, bruh." "Oh yeah," I said with a blank expression. We continued walking and talking until we noticed a train in the distance. We were actually in a giant lobby, though we hadn't realized it. "Guys, there's a train over there," I said. They both followed me, and for some reason we boarded the train. I checked my pocket to take a picture and realized, oh sheesh, I forgot it at home. I asked Mimosa how to get back. She said, "I didn't know that by touching someone, they would get teleported to other places, so I have no idea." "So it was all just luck," I said. Luca pointed somewhere and said, "Look, there are other people here." We were all riding on the train. It had just one car with seats inside. After spotting other kids far away, the train suddenly started moving very fast like an airplane. I began to sweat, and so did Luca and Mimosa. The train seemed to have no support. It felt like we were floating, as if the car was gliding on glass rails with clouds below us. I said, "Were the tea and fare we?" Luca said, "I don't know." After a minute, we all calmed down, and Luca noticed a gun on the front seat. He said, "I'll be using this one, hee." Mimosa was so strange, just sitting motionless, like she was an owl. As the train kept going, the railings began to shrink, getting smaller and smaller. I fell asleep while both of them continued watching the scenery. The railings were tall, blocking the door, and the gap between them and the train was so narrow, barely a centimeter. I was surprised they weren't touching the train at all. Suddenly, a figure appeared walking toward us from the front of the train. We were furious. Luca woke me up and said, "Watch out." I began to panic as the door started to open. When it opened, a scary-looking man stood there holding a knife in his hand. He sneered, "You kids, come here. I'm going to kill you slowly," with a sinister smile. For the first time in my life, I had never heard such a threat directed at me, and I started shaking. Mimosa stood motionless, staring at the man, while Luca calmly reloaded the gun. Chapter 4: The Confrontation. The man was getting closer and my heart was beating dramatically. Luca said, "If you come any closer, I will shoot you." The man said, "Oh, how unlucky me, I forgot my gun here. Hash." And he just stood there for a minute. We all avoided looking in the other direction, and he was like 2 meters away from us. When suddenly, he ran to us. In the place we were sitting, I was the nearest to the man since I was next to the walking path of people. Luca shoots the gun, but it has no bullets in it. So that is why the man marches forward. I was there thinking of what to do. He was coming forward closer and closer, approaching in milliseconds, and time suddenly began to slow down. The railings before are gone now. I punched the man in the abdomen and I said to both of them, "Get at the top of the train now. Go outside the door, it's not blocked now." For the first time in my life, I gave a command to someone my own age. I couldn't help but laugh a little. It felt strange. I'm an introvert, and I've never really led any groups or taken charge like that. They both nodded and started climbing to the top of the train. Luca looked scared and furious. It felt like falling into an endless abyss, just clouds below them, with nothing to hold on to. They ascended slowly while I stayed behind, fighting the man. I was getting badly beaten. When the man briefly lost focus and looked up at Mimosa and Luca climbing slowly, I thought to myself, what am I going to do? As I was thinking, I noticed the knife in his pocket. Aha! I reached for the knife and grabbed it from his pocket. He took a step back, assuming a defensive stance. Luca said, "We'll be waiting for you." I nodded while looking at his upside-down head. The man was bringing out something, oh heck no. He's got another gun, Glock. I said in my mind, what I am going to do. His gun pointed at me. Memories of my life came flashing before my eyes until I said to myself, for everything, I'm going to sacrifice myself. I marched at the guy thinking he would shoot me while his facial expression was angry and annoyed. I punched him, probably the reason he didn't fire because it does not have any bullets. After I punched him, the adrenaline rush ended. I felt pain from the punch before, like cramps and getting punched everywhere at the time. I was on the floor while the guy was coming towards me. Chapter 5 Faith. Suddenly, Luca appeared behind the man and charged at him, landing a strong punch to his back. The man collapsed unconscious. I hadn't even noticed him approach. Luca said, "I thought you were dead. I thought he had a gun." I replied, "It didn't have any bullets." Luca nodded. "All right, let's check the train. Why would he attack us like that?" I agreed with a nod. We checked the nearby desks and found a note that read, "Parents' region location." Luca's face lit up. "We're heading straight to our parents." I grinned and said, "Nice." Mimosa, her face upside down above the train, called out, "Come up, guys, it's fun up here." She smiled as she spoke. I thought to myself, what's going on all of a sudden? Anyway, both Luca and I climbed up, and wow, the view was spectacular. As we headed toward the Parents' Society, or whatever it was called, we passed by cool-looking buildings. When the train finally stopped at the station, we saw our parents standing together, as if they'd been waiting for us. Luca and I exchanged a confused glance. I turned to him and asked, "By the way, how did you get here?" He shrugged. "I don't know, I just got teleported here while I was eating my cereal. I didn't even know my parents were gone." I said, "Oh no." Then I added, "My sister, where is she?" Luca replied, "She's probably waiting in the lobby right now, not knowing what to do." Chapter 6 Rescue. I asked, "Wanna come back?" He frowned and said, "Sure." I walked over to Mimosa and asked, "Can you come with me?" She smiled and said, "No." I blinked confused, "Eh?" She laughed and said, "Joke." We all climbed aboard the train, but we had no idea how to start the engine since we had taken out the enemy driver. I grabbed a lever and pulled it, and to my surprise, the train began to move. This time, I pushed it backward and it reversed. Luca, Mimosa, and I were at the top of the train, watching as we pulled away from the station. We talked a lot and enjoyed the ride, soaking in the experience. In the end, we helped transfer all the kids from the lobby to their parents. Luca, Mimosa, and I became great friends. The end. Author's note. But sadly, it was not the reality. It was all just a dream. Silly me for having a non-existing friend, only myself. After I woke up, I checked the bedroom of my sister. I bothered her, who's playing MM2 LOL. Theguestlol11. YT channel, RLPC.